Hey, what's up everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another recap video. I'll just be recapping the previous trading week. It was a pretty good trading week for me. Happy to say that because the last trading week was a little bit rough. It was one of my worst trading weeks and this week was one of my better ones. So I'll just jump to the journal and just kind of talk you through the positions that I actually entered. So the first trade for the week was on AUDUSD. It was taken on the 1 hour time frame. It was a long position and it's a simple setup, right? So break and retest of a support level on the H1, price dip beneath, well, dip below the level, breaking back above. I entered on the retest of the broken level after some rejection on the lower time frames. Book half profit when price started to struggle at previous daily highs. The rest was stopped at break even. Alright, so this was the trade at the time of entering. Cool, so we have this kind of structural level here. Price dipped beneath the level, strongly broke back above and correctively came back into the level. Right, kind of forming this sort of pattern. Once I saw that, I entered with a tight stop. And it initially went into some good profit and then I think this is when the trade actually closed off and break even. Yeah, all right, so pushed into some nice profit. I booked some profit close to the top here. I think it was around this structural level, which I'll show on the chart in a bit. I think it was around this level where I booked out some profits. It spiked a little bit higher and then it dropped and started to range, and then on Friday we had some positive US news which obviously pushed this price down, right? And then it took me out at break even. All right, so I'll just jump to the chart to talk you through that position. So that was AUDUSD. I've rearranged my pairs this week. I usually would have, I think I had GBP at the top, GBP, Euro, and all that stuff. I don't know why I did that. I just decided to now arrange them in alphabetical order, so it's a little bit easier for me to find. All right, so AUDUSD, cool. So if we look here, I'll just jump to the H4 time frame. All right, so you can see here that we kind of had this kind of support level here, right? Price had broken above here. It wasn't the most impulsive move, but it did find support right around this area. Found more support here, found more support here, and then price had this massive push up and then came back down, right? Once it came down, it dipped beneath the level and then straight away, very impulsively, broke back above the level, right? So looking on the 1 hour time frame, which is where I entered, right, you could see here price dipped beneath the level and closed beneath the level, and then we had this nice strong impulsive move back above the level, right? And then slowly kind of trickled back into the level, and I entered right here on, I think it was this rejection here, all right, just on this candle. So I caught my entry just here, kept a tight stop, a really tight stop just beneath the wicks, and just was kind of hoping for price to kind of find the support it needed to have that nice bullish move, right? So we did get a nice strong move, and then we had this kind of corrective flag form, and then we had another impulse, right? Why I decided to book profits around this area, half my profits around this area, because we had this kind of three wave move, right? So we had impulse, correction, impulse, correction, impulse, and then we kind of had this consolidation forming. So typically when you see stuff like that after like this kind of, I think they call it like a five wave pattern on Elliott waves, or I can't remember exactly, but I do know that in trend trading you tend to have three nice waves, like three nice impulsive, three impulses, two corrections, and then some consolidation, and then probably a reversal, right? That's what I tend to see most of the time. right? So, and that's what I saw here, right? So impulse, correction, impulse, correction, impulse. And then we had price kind of showing this signs of slowing down, signs of weakness. And then we had this consolidation here, and then after we just had the reversal, right? So that's why I decided to book some profits around this area once I saw price kind of slowing down, right? I did think, right, we would probably find some support at some of these previous levels, but unfortunately we didn't. I mean, we did find some support here for a little bit, and then it slowly kind of trickled up, and you know, it wasn't sustainable, right? You know, price just kind of reversed on us and took the stops out and break even. I decided to leave the position open. I could have closed the position after it broke back beneath the structural level here. This was a nice structural level of the past, just here, right? So it's a very strong structural level. And you know, price did go above it and break back beneath it. And I would have probably, in normal circumstances, I would have probably closed this off just on this break back beneath. But I just decided, you know, with the economic news that was coming out, it's either gonna go one of two ways, right? So unfortunately it went against us, and that's fine. I was happy with that trading decision, but you know, for me the trade worked out pretty good anyway. Right, so that was the first trade of the week. Closed off first Saturday position here at 11.7R. Rest was closed off at break even, and then you know, I netted around 5.8R from that one position. Second position for the week was CADJPY. It was taken on the 1 hour time frame. It was a long position. Break and retest of previous daily highs, entered on the H1 after a few rejection candles. Clean, simple setup. Book partials at previous structure highs. Trade went on to hit final TP. So this was the trade here at the time of entering, right? So we had this kind of structural level here. It could be extended in the past. The price broke above, came back and retested it, right? So at this point, this was right here. I'll talk it through on the charts, right? And then here is where I close the trade off. Well, when it got to final TP. So here, so that's when I closed the trade off. So if we were to look here on the charts, that was CADJPY. So I actually entered this trade last week, right? So I entered this trade right around this level here, somewhere on this level. And I had stops probably just right. I think this candle is the candle that took me out. So that was a trade I took last week, which I spoke through on my recap video last week. But when I saw what price was doing, right, where price kind of made this impulsive move back into the level, I decided to re-enter, right? The perfect entry would have been after price broke above, came back and retested it, which it did. That would have been the perfect entry for me. But I decided to enter on this bullish engulfing candle, right? For various reasons. One, I saw there was a minor level here. I could just draw it in. Just this minor level just here, which price found support at, right? So that was one reason. And we also had a nice reversal pattern that was happening, right? So we had these bearish candles, and then it had this kind of, I think it's probably Morning Star. I can't remember the name of it. I know one of them is Morning Star, one of them is Evening Star. I can't remember which one's which, but this might be Morning Star, right? So we had this pattern anyway, right? So we had a bearish candle, kind of a doji candle, and then this bullish engulfing candle. So that's a nice sign of possible reversal. Price broke above. I decided to enter before the break above, just on the bullish engulfing. And then we had this nice kind of strong move, right? I booked half my profits here at these previous highs. So just at this previous structure high here. Once price got there, I took half of my profits off the table and just left the rest of the position to run. All right. Initially I was targeting extreme highs, but then, you know, I just figured, you know what, let me let me just not be too ambitious with the trade. So I just kind of put my TP just beneath this kind of bearish candle here that started this initial sell move. Yeah, so that was a pretty good trade. I was happy with that. And that was the second trade for the week. So third trade for the week was, well, actually, let me just wrap it up. So yeah, so I booked half profit here at 1.8 R, and the rest was out for 3.2 R, right? So a net return of 2.5 R. All right, so the next trade for the week was EURJPY. It was on the 1 hour time frame, long position. Very similar setup to the CADJPY setup I spoke through earlier. But in my opinion, it's just a little bit cleaner, right? So it's a break and retest of previous daily highs, confluence of the zone, trend line, and monthly pivot. Closed full position after price broke back into the daily range, right? So this was the trade at the time of entering. So we had a nice structure confluence just here. So actually this was before I entered the trade, because I did actually set a limit for this trade. I was happy with my decision to set the limit because of the confluences. So we had this nice structural point here, this nice trend line following these structural levels. We also had this nice structural point here with the previous highs forming this nice zone. It already showed rejection and it was coming back in for that second dip, right? And then this was the trade at the time of closing. Cool. So we had this high that I believed was formed on, I think it was Wednesday, and price did break higher, so that was a nice sign. But then straight away we had that reversal pattern that I was just talking about, right? Where you have this strong bullish candle, very tiny candle, and then this bearish engulfing candle, which is a sign of reversal. So once I saw that happen, I decided to close the entire position off. All right, so I'll just jump to the chart to talk it through. That was EURJPY. Right, so pretty simple trade, nice and clean. We had this trend line that was being formed, nice clean trend line. We also had the zone that I spoke about, and then right here, right on this little cross just here, that's where I set my limit. I think it was like 128.25. Yeah, 128.25. Yeah. And this is also a monthly pivot point as well. So I decided to set a limit just here. I did that purely, I would only really do that on EURJPY or CADJPY because of the way I trade this pair. And you know, in this instance it worked out really nice, right? So we had price broke above, came back very correctively into the level. It found some support here and tried to push higher, but then it came back in for a second dip, right? And this is a nice bit of confluence for me, right? In my, may not be the right way of thinking, but at least the way I think about it is that once it kind of gets just that little bit lower into that kind of pivot point, into these kind of I guess important price levels, you know, it tends to find quite a bit of orders, you know, kind of waiting just around there to get to that point, and that's when you usually kind of find a nice impulsive move that you'd probably be looking for. That's what I have found with in my back testing with EURJPY, and like I said, this is probably one of the only pairs I trade that way, and in this instance it worked out really nicely. So typically I would book some profits out at these kind of structural levels, but because of the price action that I was seeing being formed, right, we had this nice impulse, correction, impulse, right? So I just waited for price to kind of do what I thought it would have done around this level, which was breakthrough. Once I saw that, I decided to just hold the rest of the position, and I was my initial target was this previous high just here, right, just around this level. We kind of had some consolidation. It dipped back beneath, kind of tested these highs again, and then it kind of just meandered. It meandered up, right? Once we broke these highs, I had more confidence that the trade would kind of achieve final targets, right? It came really close, but it didn't quite hit final targets. And then, you know, it had every opportunity to kind of push on and just, you know, form that new daily high, right? Like this, you know, break past this previous high here. But instead, you know, it dipped back beneath the level. And at that point, after forming that kind of reversal pattern, I decided to just close the remainder of the position off. And I was happy with my decision because ultimately I'll just end up in this kind of range, right? You know, price has just kind of been ranging ever since. So, you know, good trade for me. I was happy with how this trade played out. You know, and it, I guess I could have probably been a little bit tighter with my stops, but because I set a limit for this trade, I decided to just give it a little bit more breathing room. If I was awake and trading this live, I would have probably put my stops just beneath the level here, which would have resulted in a much higher risk to reward ratio. But you know, unfortunately, I did not. I wasn't awake to take the trade. As I said, you know, I set a limit. So anyway, moving on. So the next trade for the week was NZDJPY, right? So this was taken on a 1 hour time frame as a long position. Turned out to just be a break-even trade. It was very, very, very similar to these previous two setups which I spoke through. But I decided to close it off just to kind of limit my exposure to the JPY, right? So we have here very similar setup to both trades above. Decided to close this one off and break even after price started to range. Also thought it was best to limit my exposure to the JPY, right? So here, this is when I entered the trade. All right, so we have, it looks very, very similar to the other charts, right? We have this high that was broken, came back, dipped beneath, broke back above, kind of dipped beneath again, broke back above, and it came back for a second test, right? And that's when I decided to enter the trade. And then this was the trade at the time of closing. Cool, so this was the trade at the time of closing. I think I closed it off just around this area just here. You know, price did go up. We had one of those weird spikes again on the NZD. That wasn't cool, but I survived this one. But you know, we had price kind of push up, came back down, push up, came back down. So it was just ultimately, it's been in a range pretty much all, I guess not all week, but since I entered my position, right? And I just decided to close it off once it came back to the level. So I'll just talk through the position here. So that was NZDJPY. Cool. So, right. So we had price break above the level, came back, kind of dipped beneath the level, broke above, tested, dipped beneath the level again, came back, tested. I entered once it came back and tested just here, but you can see it dip beneath the level again. It just keeps trying to find those orders, right, to go long. And I kind of thought, well, you know, hopefully on this dip we'd find enough orders to kind of push price up, right? But you know, it kind of had this weird sort of just meandering price action, and then this ridiculous spike as well that happened. Around this point, I kind of lost motivation in trade. Yeah, I probably should have closed the trade off right around this kind of area, but I just decided to kind of hold on to it for a little bit longer. Price, I think overnight, it kind of came back almost to break even just here, and it pushed on again. And then when I saw this sort of very, very bearish, strong impulse, I was like, all right, cool. If it doesn't push on from here, I think I actually set my stops to break even at this point. And then, you know, once it came to around this level, I kind of lost all faith in the trade. And then ultimately it didn't find any momentum, and it probably didn't, it didn't find any momentum all week, right? and then, you know, it just kind of spiked down and took me out at break even. So I guess this was okay. I probably shouldn't have even entered this trade, to be honest, because I was already exposed on the EURJPY and CADJPY. So I try not to take two positions, more than two positions on one kind of correlating currency, right? So yeah, I probably shouldn't have even taken this position, to be honest. But you know, I made the right decision later on. which is probably better than nothing. Okay, and the last trade for me for the week was here on AUDJPY. It was taken on a 15-minute time frame, long position, and I did decide to take this position because I already secured profits here on CADJPY. After you know, I made the decision not to, you know, not to overexpose myself to JPY here on this position. After I closed some profits on CADJPY, I decided it was okay to you know, take another JPY position because it, you know, this position kind of met my trading rules. So I thought it was okay to enter the position. So it was a break and retest of a support level on the H1, confluence of the zone and lower time frame trend line. Entered after a few rejections of the level on the 15-minute time frame. Price failed to meet the last structure high. After price formed hidden bearish divergence, I moved my stops to break even, and trade was stopped at break even. So this was the trade here at the time of entering. Alright, so you can see this kind of minor level here. Price rushed into the level, showed lots of signs of rejection. I also had this level here drawn in because I was also interested in kind of trading this level, just in case price came to that level, which I think it eventually did, right? And then this was the trade here at the time of closing. Cool. So we kind of had price push higher back into these lows just here, kind of formed this double top pattern, showed some rejection, and then you kind of had this bearish engulfing candle just here. That's when I decided to move my stops to break even. All right, so I'll just jump to the chart to talk you through the position. So that was AUDJPY. Right, so you could see here on the 1 hour time frame, we kind of had, this was the level I was looking at, right? We had price kind of break above, came back, retested and pushed higher, and kind of rushed back into the level. And as soon as it did that, it formed lots of support, lots of rejection on the lower time frames, right? And then this was that lower level I was talking about, where, you know, I also was looking at trading this level if it came to the level, which it did, but I don't think I was around the charts at this time to take an entry here. All right, so I'll just jump to the entry time frame to show you where I entered the trade. So here is where I entered the trade after multiple rejections. I think I entered after the third rejection. Yep, after the third rejection, I entered the position. So I had 1, 2, 3 rejections. On that third rejection, I entered. Price continued to kind of spike up, spike down, spike up, spike down, and then finally found enough momentum to kind of push price higher. But then it kind of failed to break past these lows here and kind of meet that first structural high, right? And then it formed, as I said, this kind of bearish pattern that wasn't the most convincing. I kind of thought, well, if it was going to make that kind of push, it would probably break past this level here, right? Which it didn't. And then we kind of formed this reversal pattern just here. Once that pattern formed, I decided to move my stops to break even, and obviously the trade kind of spiked down and took me out at break even. I would have re-entered the trade here at this level, although I'm not really seeing the clearest price action. The clearer level for me would have been seeing price push higher and then, you know, come back to test this sort of level here, right, which was my entry level from before. This is the clearest price action for me to enter a position. So probably even if I was at the chart, I probably wouldn't have entered at this point. Clearer entry would have been here for me, and that would have worked out to be probably a decent position, right? Because I would have scaled out here at this previous structure high, and then, you know, it did form that higher high, right? So but unfortunately I wasn't around to kind of trade that. So yeah, so that wraps up my trading week. It was a it was a pretty decent trading week for me. I was happy to get the month off to a solid start after a shaky end to February. So it was good to have a an immediate kind of recovery week, right? So I think after closing all positions for the week, I ended up with just around 12 hour, so 12.24 hour, which is pretty good. But even more importantly, it's the first week for the month, or for the year, sorry, that I've had 100% discipline, right? So I've not broken any trading rules. I've managed all my trades 100% the way I wanted to, which I'm happy about. I guess I kind of did break one trading rule, which was overexposing myself to the JPY just on this NZDJPY position, but I made the right trading decision to close it off, right? So all in all, pretty good week for me. Good start to the month, and hopefully the rest of the month kind of continues in the same vein. Alright, so that kind of wraps up the video. Obviously, as usual, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you like what you see, feel free to subscribe and join me on my trading journey. Alright, I'll catch you guys tomorrow for the Outlook video. See you later.